Hello Fantasy Faithfuls and welcome to DeAndre Hopkins Fantasy Snapshot. In 2019, Hopkins will be facing a group of teams that last year gave up 350 fantasy points to receivers, 7th least in NFL, with 12.7 yards per reception and 16 touchdowns on average. Breaking down his receiving, with my research into quarterbacks and wide receivers show that the short left zone is the best zone to be good in for receivers. Hopkins sees 31% of all his targets there. That is great and a massive trend that will ultimately lead to numbers by sheer amount of targets. If he can get the short left catch rate up above 70% in 2019, he will lead the league in receiving, no doubt in my mind. His catch rate is so good in all other zones except the deep left that he will destroy the competition. Especially since he gains 11 yards per reception in the short left. He is a deep threat, but if you had to point out one weakness, it has to be that deep left zone. The opponent that fits his strengths the best is the Baltimore Ravens. They gave up 8 yards per reception in the short left zone, but allowed a catch rate of 81% to opposing receivers, so be sure to start him in DFS for that game. Hopkins' one-game floor is 5.7 points and ceiling 18.3. This ranks at the 4th highest floor and 4th highest ceiling for receivers, a great 1-2 combo. And the likeliness of him scoring above the ceiling and booming is high at 3.8%, while his bust risk below the floor is 2%, which is okay since his floor is so high. His touchdown rate from last year was 6.7%, the 16th highest in the league. A perfect number, not too reliant on touchdowns, but not low enough to be worrying. Based on my market share study, I have him projected for 162 targets and for 110 receptions in 2019, one of the biggest shares of targets out there. Hopkins was one of the top 3 most usable receivers in 2018 and should have been started 10 games out of 15, which is just amazing. The situation breakdown for Hopkins shows that he scores less points at home than he does away. Very strange for a wide receiver. He scores more when playing a bottom 16 air defense and against a team with a losing record. This is good as he plays more teams with losing records in 2019 if we look and assume they will have roughly the same record from last year. Hopkins saw 26 red zone targets in 2018, and with those targets he scored 8 touchdowns, which is amazing. And with 30.6% of his team's red zone targets, he will lead his team in red zone targets again and scores. I don't worry at all when he faces a strong red zone defense. He scores touchdowns and will have a ton of opportunity. The average risk of Hopkins not scoring above 10 fantasy points last year was 20.5%, which is 4th lowest out of receivers, which is a very low risk number and indicates a reliable fantasy scorer on any given week. Based on his current ADP of 7th overall and all the numbers in this video, I give him a draft grade of A+. Fantastic receiving trends, so many predicted targets that they're coming out of his ears, and not too reliant on touchdowns for his production. My 2nd favorite receiver for 2019. Hello Fantasy Faithful, I hope you enjoyed that video. Don't forget to check out more of them right here and here. In case you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a beat.